questions before we proceed?
Doctor,
تفضل.
I would like to ask about the grades of second quiz, if you like.
I'm working on them. إن شاء الله يعني tonight at most tomorrow بإذن الله بتكون جاهزة إن شاء الله.
Okay. يعطيك العافية دكتور.
الله يعافيك.
دكتور.
نعم.
بس معليش عندك نسخة للكتاب؟ أبى أشوف صورته لأن أتوقع إني ماخذ كتاب غلط.
طيب okay. Do you have a couple of minutes after the lecture?
Okay, no problem.
During the office hour يعني أو حتى after the lecture. We'll talk about it. Okay, but don't forget, huh?
Okay, إن شاء الله.
إن شاء الله.
شكرا.
طيب. Okay. So, inshallah, what we will do today is we will continue with our discussion on the range, or we will actually finish. We will finish our discussion on the range function and the for loop in order to move to the next subject. So let me first share the screen with you. Can you see the slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. So basically, this is what we did last time. It's good to refresh our memory because also this will be included in the quiz tomorrow. So let's just look at the range function again. Try to remember, the different forms of the range function. And then we will do an activity, and then we will go over and continue our discussion on nested loops. So basically, we said that one of the nice features in Python is provision of the range function, which will provide a certain form of an iterator for the loop, right? In which you go with an index and you iterate over these values. And it comes in three forms. The first form is when you have only one argument for the function, which is, for example, here for I in range 5. Now, when it has one argument, then this means that my first value will start from 0. My last value is the argument minus 1, in this case 4 minus 1, and the increment is 1. So each iteration will take the values or will assume the values of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the first form. The second form is when I give two arguments, right? Now, when I give two arguments, then the first argument will be the first or the value of the variable in the first iteration. So when I say here 1, so this means that I will start with 1, right? And will end with, again, the second argument minus 1, okay? Maybe in order to be more precise, we will say it will end with, the value before the last argument, okay? So the second argument is not included in the values, okay? So we will go over 1, 2, 3, 4. And why 1, 2, 3, 4? Because we have only two arguments. So again, the increment is the default increment by 1. The increment is the default increment by 1. Now, if I provide 3 arguments, then the first argument is exactly the same as the first argument. The second argument is the same as exactly the second argument in that form. The third argument now will be the step, okay? So if I put here 2, then I will start with 1, and then I will add 2 instead of adding 1, right? So in the first iteration, the value of I will be 1. In the second iteration, the value of I will be 3, and so on and so forth, until I reach a value that is greater than or equal to the second argument. Once I reach a value that is greater than or equal to the second argument, I will stop, okay? So I know for sure that my index will never reach 11 or greater than 11. And as you can see here, it will be 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and that's it. واضح يا شباب? Any question on the range function? Any question on the range function? طيب, so we don't have any questions. I have a question, okay? So let's go here to the activity. Okay, so use the for loop to print only the odd values between 1 and 10 using the range function. The odd values between 1 and 10 using the range function. On the chat, I would like to see, you know, the for loop using the range function that will print only the odd values between 1 and 10. يلا يا شباب. Oops. I gave it away, huh? طيب بلاش. Since I gave it away, let me change this. Okay, so for I in range 1 to 10, you know, with an increment of 2, print I. Of course, it will print 1, 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. صح? It will print 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So let me change this. Now use the for loop to print to print 5, 9, 13, 17, 21. Okay. يلا يا شباب ورجوني شطارتكم. Use the for loop to print 5, 9, 13, 17, 21 using the range function. Yeah. طيب خلينا نشوف فارس. Let's see the answer of Faris. Control C, which seems to me also the same as the answer by Muhammad and Amjad also. Amjad, I'll come back to you. Okay, Amjad, I'll come back to you. So let's look at this. Okay. طيب. So for I in range 5, 22, 4. Okay. So you notice that the increment is basically by 4. You notice that the increment is by 4. So you are starting with, you know, 5, and then 5 plus 4, which is 9, plus 4 is 13, and so on. And of course, once we reach 22 or above, we will stop. So we will stop at 21. So let's check the answer. Yes, it is. Okay. 5, 9, 13, 17, and 21. Right. So let me go back to Amjad. Now, Amjad, what he did was he said I equal 5 in the beginning. ليش يا أمجد؟
لأن الدكتور لازم نعرف الفاريبل قبل.
By the way, the for loop does define the variable. When you define it in the range, it defines the variable. Did you know any other programming language before this?
C, دكتور.
C, that's what I thought. Okay. Usually this is what we do. You know, you might, you know, initialize the variable and then you can do the iteration. But you are absolutely correct. So for example, here we have not defined J, صح? We have not defined J. So if I do this, if I say for J in range and then print J, and if I run it, now if it did not give me, if it gave me an error, then you would be right. We need to define J before we put it in the statement of the for loop. But since it did not give me an error, So this means that, you know, this will initialize, you know, a variable that has not been defined earlier. Okay, Amjad?
اوكي دكتور.
تمام. طيب. Now let's come to something that actually either one of you or the other section raised the other day when he talked about the nesting of loops. We noticed that we can nest the if statement, صح? We can nest if statements. So the question is, well, can we nest loops? And the answer is yes. And actually, nesting loops has very interesting and essential, you know, objectives that we would like to achieve, you know, when we use them. We will see actually one of them today when we would like to print, for example, the values in tabular form, right? If you want to print the values in a table like a printout, the best thing to do, or I don't know if it's the only thing to do, is basically to use the nested for loop, okay? Or the nested loops, basically, in general, not necessarily the for loop, but nested loops. So when the body of a loop contains another loop, the loops are what we call nested. The loops are nested. A typical use of nested loops is printing a table with rows and columns. Printing a table with rows and columns. For example, assume that we would like to print the powers of x in this table, right? So we would like to print x to the power 1, x to the power 2, x to the power 3, x to the power 4 for the values of x equal 1, 2, all the way up to n, up to 10, okay? All the way up to 10. So how do we do that? طيب, can anybody tell me what needs to be done? I mean, how would you think about printing this table?
Multiplying x by x several times.
Multiplying x by x. Well, this was not really the question that I had in mind. You know, how to compute the value of x to the power, but also I can use the power function, صح?
اقدر اني اخلي مثلا x to the power variable بعدين اعرف الفاريبل على انه for الفاريبل مثلا I in range بعدين احط الرينج بعدين print I.
Okay. طيب, let me put it this way. If I want to see, this is what I would like you to do when you think about solving a problem. Is basically first I would like you to think about, well, what needs to be done. So basically, to print this table, what needs to be done? Forget about how, forget about for loops, forget about everything. If you want to think about what needs to be done, how would you express it in kind of a procedural form?
We have first to define the range of variables that we want to find the power for.
See again, you are putting more emphasis on the how. You know, because you're telling me, well, we need to define the range. Well, why are you defining the range? What do you want to do?
We want to solve the problem, so we focus on the question itself. Understand the question is have the answer.
Okay, so what do you want to do?
Write pseudocode or understand what's required for solving the question.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I want to print this table. What needs to be done?
I need to take the first 10 numbers and
take the first 10 numbers.
10 numbers from 1 to 10.
You are starting wrong now.
Okay.
You are starting wrong.
I think that we should know what يعني كيف الترتيب حيكون. مثلا power 1, power 2, power 3, power 4.
Well, it's given to you. Well, it's given to you. هيها x to the power 1, x to the power 2, x to the power 3, x to the power 4.
ايوه بس هل يعني نحسب الباور 1 على طول بعدين باور 2 ولا مرة مع كل رقم؟
Until now, I didn't find the answer that I was looking for.
We try to find the relation between the numbers.
Try to find the relationship between the numbers. Well, I don't know what the relationship is, but it seems to me that we are just applying the power function. Again, what needs to be done يا شباب. What
I think the first thing we should put x to the power variable.
طيب. And then
for loop.
شايف أول ما حكيت for loop you are going to the how. None of you gave me the what I need. What needs to be done?
First, I need the powers.
You need the powers. طيب.
Power 1.
Should
power
increase
2,
the power by 1 each time.
خلاص.
Then
so once you tell me should increase the power, you are going to the how. طيب ايش رايكم to let me answer this time. So that
okay.
ايش رايكم ولا في حدا would like to try before I give the answer. Anybody would like to give an answer?
Know how to solve it mathematically before we do it in Python?
No, this is not what I meant. This is what I mean يا شباب. If I want to print this table, then I will need to do the following things. Number one, I need to print the header. Then I need to print each row. صح? I need to print each row, and I will continue printing each row until I reach the last row. صح ولا لا؟ This is exactly what needs to be done, right? This is exactly what needs to be.
ما فهمتك.
مرة ثانية. What needs to be done? What needs to be done is the following. Number one, okay, I need to print the first row. Forget about how. I need to print the header, which says, you know, x to the power 1, x to the power 2, x to the power 3, x to the power 4. How, I don't care, but I need to print the first row. Okay? طيب, next, I need to print the rows of the table one by one. صح ولا لا? I need to print the rows of the table one by one until I reach the last row. This is what needs to be done. Okay? This is what needs to be done. So this is kind of, you know, the way, the thinking that goes into this problem, right? Because I don't want to start with the solution. Well, if I start with the solution, where did that solution come from? Huh? So basically, the first thing is, you know, print the table header, and then, you know, print each row, and then print each row. طيب, how do you print each row? Well, you can see here, you know, for x from 1 to 10, which is fine. I'm using kind of a loop because I want to know how many rows I'm going to print, right? Print the table row and then print a new line. Print a table row and then print a new line. So this is what needs to be done. Okay, this is what needs to be done. طيب, how do we do it? Now we will see, you know, the use of nested loops. Okay, now we will see the use of the nested loops. So let's start with the first thing. How do we print a table row? What do we need to print a table row?
Format operator.
For loop.
A for loop. صح? A for loop. So as you can see here, to print a table row, we need a for loop, and this for loop is inside this for loop. This for loop is inside that for loop, right? So that's why we use the nested. That's where we use the nested loop. Now, how do we print the first? Well, this is how to print a table row. So basically, we need to print a value for each component, and this requires a second loop, right? This requires a second loop. This is how we print. This is how we print a table. This is how we print a table row. I stopped using. Okay, so this requires a second loop, and that second loop is basically for n from 1 to 4. Now, who can tell me what is n here? What is n?
The power.
The power, because we are printing the powers from x to the power 1, x to the power 2, x to the power 3, x to the power 4. So this is basically the second, or what we call the innermost loop, right? This is the innermost loop. Now, this loop must be placed inside the preceding loop, you know, the bigger one, which is, you know, for x from 1 to 10. We say that the inner loop is nested inside the outer loop. We say that the inner loop is nested inside the outer loop. So this is basically, you know, kind of a flow chart of, you know, how the nested loops work. So we will start with x equal 1. Now, if I want to be really, you know, accurate about the flow chart, well, I need to have one box for printing the table row, and if I want for printing the header, and the header, I might need to, you know, print it also using a for loop. So I might have, you know, another for loop before we put x equal 1. Okay, before we start with x equal 1, if I want to be that accurate. But anyways, let's just concentrate on printing the contents of the table. So this basically is a flow chart for printing the contents of the table. So we start with x equal 1, and then we check, is x less than or equal to 10? Because as you might guess, we want to do it for x equal 1, 2, 3, 4, up until 10, صح? If x is less than or equal to 10, then I need to initialize the exponent, the power, n equal 1, and then as long as n is less than or equal to 4, I need to print x to the power n and increase the value of n, okay? And I keep doing that, until n is greater than 4. Now, if n is greater than 4, then I need to print a new line. Remember that I need to do my prints in the same line, صح? And until now, by the way, we didn't know how to do it. If you print and you print again, the print function, you know, prints an end of line immediately, صح? يعني by default, not immediately. By default, prints a new line after the print function. Today, inshallah, we will see how we can change the behavior of the print function so that it does not print the new line. Okay? Right. So we print the new line, and then we add the value of x. Remember, because we need it for the outer loop, we need to add the value of x. So we add the value of x, and then we will go back and we will check. Is x less than or equal to 10? Yes. Then n is equal to 1. We initialize back the exponent or the power to 1, and we continue. Okay? And we continue. So this is kind of the flow chart of you know, of the nested loop. So now let's, you know, talk about the print function. We want to change the behavior of the print function. So if you want to change this behavior, we can set the end parameter to another string. Oh, so there is an end parameter in the print function? Yes. Okay. So the default value of the end parameter is \n, which is the new line. Now, what we need is, we need to change the new line into something else, right? We need to change the new line into something else. What is that something else? Well, for example, here, maybe we can use the tab. Okay, we can use the tab. But before doing that, let's consider this example. So course, ICS 104, university, KFUPM, print course, and then end equal the at, and then print university. What do you think on the chat? What do you think the output of this code will be? On the chat, what is the output of this code? لا يا بدر.
انت قصدك الكود كامل يعني ولا بس الى
الكود كامل انا قصدي.
ايوه جاء الجواب خلاص.
طيب Okay, now I have basically two different answers. One of them has a space between at and KFUPM, and the other one does not have a space. Okay, the other one does not have a space. So and they all come in the same, line. Now, if you look here, ICS 104, when we specify the end, as you can see, there is no space anymore. Okay, there is actually not there is no space anymore. When I do print course without the end parameter, what will happen? It will print ICS 104 followed by a new line, صح؟
صحيح، لكن
صح.
تم استبدال new line by at.
لكن تم استبدال النيو line, so there is no need for a space. There is no comma between course and university. Do you see a comma between course and university? Do you remember when we add a space?
Yes, if we have a comma.
We have comma. If we have comma in the print statement that separates arguments of the print statement, then a space is added between every two arguments. صح ولا لا؟ بس أنا هنا ما عندي arguments. I have two totally different print statements. I have two totally different print statements.
Okay. The comma after courses for what?
See, the comma after course, what does it, separate? Does it separate two arguments to be printed? ولا it separates an argument and setting a parameter?
Setting a parameter.
Setting a parameter. It does not differentiate, it does not separate between two arguments. It does not separate between two arguments that need to be printed. Okay? That's why there is no space introduced. واضح يا شباب? Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes, clear.
Right. Very good. Okay.
But Doctor, how do you do it in \n?
In okay. So in \n, if you do like this, okay, if you do like this, this is exactly the same. This is exactly the same as this. واضح?
Yes.
Very good. Okay. طيب, so let's now we are in a position, to see the code. So the maximum for the power n max equal to 4. The maximum value of x is 10. Okay. Now for n in range 1 to n max plus 1. And why do we have n max plus 1?
Because it will stop before this value.
It will stop before this value. Excellent. So for n in range 1 to n max plus 1, print print the value of n, and then with the end being the empty string, right? With the end being the empty string. So here, what we are doing is we are printing the values from 1 to n max. صح? We are printing the values of 1 to n max. By the way, which values are we printing from 1 to n max? Let's go back to the table. Which values are we printing from 1 to n max?
The first row.
The first row, كل الفirst row.
The first column.
The header.
مش the first column. The header. كل الهيدر.
Yes.
The power of the header.
The power of the header. We are just printing the powers يا شباب. ترى ما في شفتوا x؟ كان في x موجود في البرنت ستيتمنت؟ ترى ما كان في x ابدا. ما كان في الا one value which is n, n, the value of n, the the index. Okay, so we are just printing the powers. We are just printing the powers, and then now after we print the powers, now we print the x's kind of before them a little bit, صح? So we will have, you know, the x. This is the x, right? This is the x. And as you can see, when we use 10 and then we use the empty string, it's basically just to have them, you know, aligned. Okay, it's just to have them aligned. So this basically prints the header, right? Of course, this prints the powers and new line, and then the x's, and then a new line. And what is printed here?
$35 slashes.
35 slashes. ايوه. مو تقولوا لي بكره الكويز يا دكتور هذا كان بالماتيريال تبعت مش قلت لكم you know I'll keep, you know, bugging you with this. So you know, there is a possibility to use some of these functions. You know, when we talk about nesting loops and printing tables, you might need to use these functions. By the way, Tara, you don't need to remember this because you can also do it in a for loop. صح ولا لا? You can print, you know, 35 hyphens using a for loop. But which one is easier? Use a for loop or just do it this way?
This way.
Right, anyways. Then of course we print the table body. So for x in range 1 to x max plus 1, because now we want to print each row from 1 to 10, right? To x max plus 1. And then for n in range 1 to n max plus 1, now just print x to the power n, okay? X to the power n. And of course, inside this for loop, the end is basically the empty string. And after I finish a row, I need to print a new line. After I finish a row, I need to print a new line. So if I run this, as you can see, you know, x to the power 1, x to the power 2, x to the power 3, x to the power 4, and you see very nice, very nicely, you know, written table. Is that clear يا شباب؟ طبعا again يعني it's nice to understand this thing, but you will not really you know, grasp the concept of nested loops until you solve problems requiring, you know, nested loops. You have to solve problems requiring nested loops. Right. Okay, so let's move on now to processing of strings. A common use of loops is to process or evaluate strings. Okay, is to process or evaluate strings. For example, you may need to count the number of occurrences of one or more characters in a string to verify that the contents of a string meet certain criteria. That the contents of a string meet certain criteria. So, for example, suppose you need to count the number of uppercase letters in a string. The number of uppercase letters in a string. So in order to do that, first of all, I need a function to do what? I need a function to do what?
To do the sum.
To do the sum.
Or to find the...
well, I was more talking about a function related to strings. You know, what is a function? To use is upper, right? To use is upper. To have a function, you know, a built-in function that checks whether a certain letter is an uppercase letter or not, right? Is an uppercase letter or not. Now, we know that, you know, is upper basically checks that. You know, is upper basically checks that. So, for example, you know, this is a test message. Uppercase equals 0. This is the number of uppercase letters. Again, I think these are the choices of the author. If I wanted to choose the variable name, I wouldn't choose this variable name. I would choose, you know, number of upper case, okay, or number of uppers, for example, more meaningful. But anyways, so let's use uppercase. وبعدين, yeah, so uppercase equals 0, and then for character in string, this is, by the way, the use of the for loop with the n to iterate over the elements of the object. And the object here is a string object. You know, if the character is an uppercase letter, then you need to add uppercase, you need to increment the uppercase variable by 1. Okay, and of course, you print the number of uppercase letters at the end. So if I run this, what should the answer be given? What is the answer to this?
3.
It will give 3 because I have how many uppercase letters? Well, I have the capital T here, the capital T here, and the capital M here. Okay, and the capital M here. So if I run this, it will say that the number of uppercase letters are ليش are? The number of uppercase letters is, huh? The number of uppercase letters is 3. The number of uppercase letters is 3. Okay, Shabab? Any question? Right. Okay, so, well, let's look at another example of, you know, or another application of finding or counting matches is if you are asked to print the position of each uppercase letter in a sentence. Suppose you are asked to print the position of each uppercase letter in a sentence. So basically, in this case, what do we need to do?
If is upper is true, we print the index for each letter.
We need to print the index of each letter. We need to print the index of each letter. Right. In that case, can I use this for loop for character in string? Is there a way to access the index from here?
Come again?
Is there a way to access the index of the character? See here, what are the values of the variable char?
Zero, 1, 2, 3.
حرام عليك.
The letters.
String 0.
The letters, capital T, H, I, S, space. ترى هذه values تبع الكاركتر. ما هي 0 1 2. ما هي 0 1 2. طيب, if I want to access 0 1 2, then how do I change this?
The length.
أيوة. So now, instead of talking about the elements of, you know, the container, no, I would like to talk about, you know, the indices. And how do I access the indices? Well, use the range function along with the length. The range with the length, صح? And the length is already, you know, one more than the last index, صح ولا لا? And it starts from 0, right? And it starts from 0. So this is what we will do. So in this case, we will say, you know, enter a sentence, and then for I in range, len sentence. For I in range, len sentence. So now I have the indices of the characters, right? I have the indices from 0 to len minus 1. طيب. Now I need to check sentence I dot is upper. Now I can check, you know, sentence I dot is upper. So if the character was an uppercase character, then, you know, the condition value will be true, and I will print the index where, you know, they are, you know, capital letters. So let's run it, and let's see, for example, assume that I would like to enter my name like this. So what do you think the answer is going to be? What will be printed?
0.
What will be 0?
And I think 6.
6? 9?
Maybe 9 and 11.
11 ولا 12؟
11. Wasn't A for Khatib 9?
طيب هيها 9.
Okay, 10, 11. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay. Okay يا شباب.
Okay.
طيب. Finding the first or last match. When you count the value that fulfills the condition, you need to look at all values. صح? If you want to count the value that fulfills the condition, you need to look at all values. However, if your task is to find the match, then you can stop as soon as the condition is fulfilled. Okay? Okay? So if you want, to work until you find an uppercase letter, once you find the first one, you stop. But if you want to count how many of them are there, then you need to check all. Then you need to check all values. Then you need to check all values. So basically, look at this code. Look at this code and read it. And I need somebody to tell me what does it do. Tara, if you read the print statements, you will understand what's happening.
It checks if the found is true, while not found is false. While not found is false, it's meaning true, and positions less than the length of string, which is
لحظة شوي. Now you are translating the code. بتسميها ترجمة حرفية, literally. And I want in concept, what does the code do?
It checks if the found is false. If it's true, it check if the first value is letter. If it's a letter, the found is true, and it's printing.
لا ما أعطيتني الزبدة.
It specifies the position of the first digit.
Okay.
And then tells if the string contains a digit or not.
طيب, well, it specifies the position of the first digit in the string, صح? Of the first digit in the string. But if the string does not have any digit, it will print, a proper string.
It does not contain digits.
Yes. So for example, instead of A1, let's say this is one of two values. Okay, this is one of two values. So if I try to run this, and listen, look here, I'm using the while statement. صح? I'm using the while statement because why didn't I use a for loop here? Why didn't I use a for loop?
To terminate the loop.
We might terminate once we find the digit. We don't need to continue. Huh? We don't need to continue. Of course, there might be a way to go outside the for loop abruptly, right? But usually, when I have a for loop, I need to go over all the elements. Huh? I need to go over. Once I have the need to basically iterate until a condition satisfied, and then I want to leave the loop, then it is more appropriate to use a while loop. It is more appropriate to use a while loop. So now, if I run this, you know, it says here the first digit occurs at position 8. Okay. If I do something like this, one of two values, and
Mister, we can't see the screen.
The screen is black.
Oh, you can't see the screen? How come?
Just now, teacher. I can see it.
Now you can see it?
No. Just, I mean, just disconnected now, about seconds ago.
طيب, shall I let me
Show the message about bad network quality. I think it's at your end.
أيوة.
It first lagged your camera for the face, and
it's visible.
Yes.
Now it's okay.
Is it now visible?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, okay. So basically, you know, I changed now the 1 and the 2 to basically the strings 1 and 2. So now if I run this, you will see that the string does not contain a digit. Okay. So the moral of this example is that whenever I need to stop the iteration when a condition occurs, it is more appropriate to use a while loop than a for loop. Okay. It is more appropriate to use a while loop than a for loop. طيب.
Doctor?
نعم.
Sorry, but while not found, meaning that found is true, or?
Yes. So basically here we initialize found to false. Okay, because we did not find the digit yet, صح? And then we will say while not found. As long as I did not find the digit, I need to continue. طيب? But not only that, but and position is less than the length of the string. Because if position reaches the length of the string, then I want to stop. خلاص ما ضل شيء.
لو شلنا الشرط الثاني بيصير ايش يسمونه؟ The case where the program will not stop.
أيوة, very good question. So what happens if I remove the second condition? If I just say while not found?
Infinite loop.
Infinite loop, when?
When there is no digit.
أيوة. See, if there is a digit, definitely it will go out. Okay, if there is a digit, like for example here, I'm going to put a digit here and I run it, looks perfect. صح? But what if there is no digit? Well, I will let you run it because I know that it will hang. Okay.
So
I know that
it will crash. The program crash site.
No. The program will crash because I will try to access an index that does not exist. Huh? Let's try to run it. Let's try to run it, and let's see what will happen. شايفين يا شباب? String index out of range. We are trying to access a value that does not exist, which is basically a string at length, right? String at length. For this case, it will not lead into an infinite loop. It will lead to a program crash. Okay, it will lead to a program crash.
The infinite loop will be in the case of using for, right? If you want more than a...
No, for will stop at the end of the string. The problem with for, if I find the digit in the beginning, it will continue until the end. Huh?
Right.
Okay. طيب. The last thing that we will do here is what if we need to find the position of the last digit in the string? What if we need to find the position of the last digit in the string? Well, in that case, we can instead of starting from the beginning of the string, we can start from the end of the string. Huh? because that's the difference between the two while loops. That's the difference between the two while loops. So the first one, we were finding the first digit or the first occurrence of the digit. So we started from the beginning of the string. طيب, if you want the last occurrence of a digit, start from the end. Okay, start from the end. You can basically look at this code, you know, more deeply after class. So I apologize for leaving you a couple of minutes after time, but you can basically leave now if you wish. So anybody has any questions?
Yes, Dr. Me, about the book.
Yes. طيب. Let me stop the